Hello everyone and welcome. In this video, I'm going to show you how to do an independent measures t-test using SPSS. And in this case, I'm using version 25, but these instructions should work with any version of SPSS really that you're using. So in this example, I'm doing activity 7-3 from our book. And in this case, we have two groups that we're comparing. We have people who are given a low anchor and a high anchor, and then we're looking at sales. Right, so the details of the example are in the textbook, but very quickly is that we want to look at whether or not using different information on signs impacts how many of something people buy. So we have stores posting a sign with a low anchor where they're told that sports drinks cost $5 for $5, or they're given a high anchor where sports drinks cost $10 for $10. Note that the price is the same, but we're just wondering if anchoring them on 5 versus 10 changes the actual number of sports drinks that they purchase. Okay. So we have group 1 is our low anchor group and 2 is our high anchor group. So we're going to start by labeling our variables under the variable view box or the tab. So click on variable view, and then under values, for the group, we're saying that 1 is the low anchor group. These are the people who are told that it is $5 for $5. And 2 is our high anchor group. These are people who are told that it is $10 for $10. We want to know if sales are different in those two groups in terms of how many on average people bought per transaction. Okay, so we say okay there and then go back to our data view, and then we're going to do an independent t. So click on Analyze, Compare Means, Independent Samples t-test. Our grouping variable is labeled group here. It's our two groups, the low anchor and high anchor group. But it gives us these two question marks here because it's not sure which two groups we want to compare. I realize we only have two groups, but SPSS doesn't know this. So we click on Define Groups and say we're comparing group 1 and group 2. And say Continue. Our test variables are dependent variable, and that is our sales that we're looking at. And we say OK there. Okay, so this gives us our independent measures t-test. The low anchor group on average sold 6, or people purchased 6 sports drinks per transaction. And the high anchor group, people purchased on average 9.47. The standard deviations for these two groups look fairly similar. It's 2.39 and 3.29. And that's important because one of the assumptions of the independent measures t-test is a homogeneity of variance. And that is that these two standard deviations from the samples are estimating the same population parameter. We can test that by looking at the Levene's test. The Levene's test gives us a sig level or a p-value that compares these two standard deviations. That significance level of 0.32 is fairly high. The data are consistent with the null, which suggests that these two values are not different from each other. They're estimating the same population parameter. And so because of that, we can use the equal variance as assumed row because that equality of variances or homogeneity of variance assumption is met. So in interpreting our data, we're looking at the first row of the output there. That gives us a t of negative 3.3 with 28 degrees of freedom and a two-tailed p-value of 0.003. Now, remember, SPSS always gives you two-tailed p-values. If you were doing a one-tailed t-test, you would divide that by 2. But in this case, we're doing a two-tailed t-test. Our difference between our means is negative 3.467. And the 95% confidence interval is negative 5.62 and negative 1.31. So I'm 95% sure that the true population mean difference is between these two values. So this low p-value suggests that the difference we're observing between our means is not likely to be due to sampling error. And we have a mean difference of 3.5, right? So people were buying about 3.5 more in the high anchor condition than in the low anchor condition. All right, you'll note that SPSS does not give you a standardized effect sizes here. So if you need standardized effect sizes and confidence intervals around there, you need to use a different program. And we'll have a different video showing you how to do that. The last thing you may want here are graphs. So to obtain graphs, there are a bunch of ways to do it. But one way that we're going to do here is click on Analyze Descriptive Statistics and click on Explore. My dependent variable is sales. My independent variable is called a factor, and that's which group they're in. So I move that into the factor list. Under plots, I'm going to look at histograms and click on Continue. And then I get histograms as well as box plots there for interpreting our output. Okay, and that is how you run the analyses that you need for interpreting and working with this example here in activity 7.3. Okay? So I hope that helps, and good luck.